little bit nervous about, bearing my soul today.
They hear me rapping and walk up. They hear you rapping and walk out.
The first show of the tour.
All the shit that you talk up, and yeah, I'm the one that they talk about.
360, ARIA-winning, multi-platinum record-selling Aus Rap artist. He's toured with Eminem, now he's here, sharing with us the raw, unfiltered truth to his crazy story.
In the picture, I always return to the top. I'm no
We're going to talk about some stuff you haven't shared publicly before. What was life like in the lead up to that?
I've always had this desperate need to be liked, a massive people pleaser. When music was just taking off, I was very much in my heavy party stage where we were taking a lot of ecstasy and speed and cocaine and stuff like that. Fame swallowed me and just spat me out. No one knew what was going on. I'd been hiding this from everyone out of shame. On my social media, it was probably 90% hate. When I post something, all the comments, it was crazy and it was brutal. What I realized is that so much shit has changed. Like my attitude to life has changed, like even my attitude to sex. And now I'm actually doing all the work that I was way too scared to do. And that's because of you. I had to really figure out, okay, what are my core values and who's the man that I want to be.
What's up, man? Good to see you, dude.
Pleasure to see you. Good to see you, man.
Oh, man, I'm super excited for this. This is going to be epic. Hey, darling. Nice to see you.
How
are
are you going? So good.
Awesome.
All right, I'll leave you
Mate,
to
check this out. Super
Crazy
excited.
setup.
I know, man. It's going to be great. How you feeling?
Had a rough sleep
Yeah.
last night. Little bit nervous about, bearing my soul today. Saying
man.
stuff that I've never done before.
Absolutely. Like, we're going to have a big conversation. Super excited, man.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Oh, man.
That's sick.
How many bras do you get thrown at you?
I think at that one there was 2. Yeah, it just depends where we are. I usually chuck them on.
Yeah? You good?
Yep.
Okay, closing down your eyes. If you're feeling safe and comfortable to, bring your awareness just to the breath, breathing in and out through the nose. Giving ourselves permission to just be here now and go all in. When you're ready, coming back to the room, opening the eyes. Let's fucking go.
Damn. I feel like it just has some nangs. Oh, I feel super relaxed. God damn.
Man, it's good to have you here.
Thanks, brother.
I just want to say it's a real honor, and I want to acknowledge you for, someone with a high profile like yourself, and to A, be doing this type of work, but also B, being willing to share. A lot of people do work on themselves, but perhaps like to keep that secret or anonymous because of whatever that they might make that mean. For us, we know this is a pathway to awakening people to live their best lives, but then also, the people in their circles, helping them improve their own lives. So thank you for coming on, man.
Man, I'm very, very grateful to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm ready to get into it and just bare the soul,
Bare the soul. I know we're going to talk about some stuff you haven't shared publicly before. So super excited to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It's going to be awesome, though. I think it's going to be well worth it.
Awesome.
But the mind creeps in,
I do know. Yeah, I do know. So, dude, talk to me. We met about 12 months ago.
Yep.
And obviously, to the public, you're 360, the Aussie rapper, incredibly accomplished, creating timeless music. Where were you at back then? Like, what had kind of led to, us meeting and you starting your inner work? What was life like in the lead up to that?
So when we met, I was very lost. I had this idea that I had no idea who I was anymore. I just completely lost myself. And I think a lot of that stems from when my music first started taking off. I've always been a massive people pleaser.
Yeah.
So when the music started taking off and I started getting the fame and, you know, all with everything that brings, I thought it was everything that I always wanted. It was when I was growing up. I thought fame was just like going to be the best thing and make life awesome and
Sure.
bring you heaps of money and all that kind of shit.
Yep.
And then fame swallowed me and just spat me out. I had many instances where I would say something on like TV or in interviews or just on social media and stuff like that that would rub people the wrong way and land me in hot water. And the reaction from that really affected me.
Yep.
Like I've always had this desperate need to be liked by everyone. I wanted everyone to like me and I didn't want anyone to hate me.
Yeah.
But then I'd say these things that would cause people to just really hate me.
Like
and,
what? Any examples of that?
certain opinions and just I can't even think of it off the top of my head now, but just certain opinions of political things and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I'd say it and it would cause this reaction. I'd get attacked by people online, by different groups and stuff like that. And then I noticed that really started changing me. I'd upset these people that it meant that I was wrong in those feelings.
Wow.
And so those opinions that I held, I thought they were wrong. For them to like me, I need to think how they think. So I started noticing it change me over the years. Like I started becoming more what I thought people wanted me to be rather than just being myself.
Yeah, wow.
And that over the course of my whole career until we met,
Yep.
which was a long time. Like I think that was from about the age of 23, 24, when everything started kicking off, until last year, which was when I was 36.
Wow.
So that whole time was just a big mash of me like trying to fit the persona that I thought I should be. And then I became hyper aware of the things that wouldn't go down well if I said them.
Yep.
Even if they're opinions that I held, I would just not say it because I knew it would upset people. And I would end up being in interviews and answering questions like a politician, like someone who spends their whole life knowing how to dance around topics and not quite saying things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just being very vague about stuff and not being direct about it because I just didn't want to rock the boat. I became super agreeable and diplomatic in every single interview, even in my person, like that transcended into my personal life too, because I thought like even my friendship interactions and stuff, I had to uphold this kind of sort of image of who I was and stuff.
Wow.
And so over that time, I just completely lost sight of who I was. Like I ended up going to rehab at the start of the pandemic for 4 months. And when I was in there, I was like for me, it was like, I've got to figure out who I am. That was my whole thing. I've got to figure out who I am and I've got to find my voice again and start speaking up for myself, because I became a bit of a pushover.
Yeah, wow.
Like I let a lot of people just walk all over me. I let bad behavior slide without stepping up and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
All the time, man.
Yeah.
Just in so many aspects of my life. And that over time builds up and I just completely lost myself. And then so fast.
Sorry to cut you off, but would it be fair to say that when you're doing that and you're saying, I'm answering questions the way, you know, the media may have wanted, or the people might have wanted, or the fans might have wanted, or whatever it was, did they respond positively to that? Did they like, did they like who you were being? Or, you know, would you leave and they were like, that was a great interview or a great show or whatever? Like,
I think it was just boring. For me personally, it was a little bit boring. I think it was like, it was safe. It was just playing it safe.
Yeah.
And so you're just getting by, but you're not really, like I was very polarizing before. When I was speaking up and saying stuff, people either loved or hated me. But that kind of approach is what sort of catapulted me up into where I'd gotten.
Yeah, wow.
But then stepping away from that and then trying to play it safe all the time is when you do the interview and they go down well, but it's like there was nothing that really came from it. There's nothing special. There's no moments in it.
What were you afraid of, man?
I just wanted people to like me.
Yeah.
I just wanted everyone to like me and that's it.
What was scary if they didn't?
I don't know why. I just thought I would I was going to be alone.
Yeah.
It was like this feeling of like, if I say what I really believe, everyone's going to turn on me.
Yep.
And that's just not true.
Yep.
Like, since we've been working, I've figured that out, that it's like, if you stand by opinions that are quite unpopular and controversial, but you stand by them, you actually win favor with more people than you do than if you just play the safe route.
Safe, yeah. It's interesting you touch on that, man, because that talks into one of our, in our modality, one of the core fears of abandonment, right? And it's funny because so many of us, you see memes all over the internet, like, I don't care what anyone thinks about me and just do you and put yourself first and all of that. And while I appreciate that sentiment, I think it's kind of rubbish, because at our core, we're herd mammals. Of course, we care what other people think about us. And there's a part of me that's sitting here with you going, shit, I hope people, like this and receive this well. Yeah. And so I think what you're talking to is really natural and also really normal. And to a degree, it's quite healthy. Wanting to fit in with the other mammals in our herd has helped keep us alive for thousands of years. But what I'm hearing is that when you stopped being true to yourself and actually started, doing what you thought they wanted, whoever they were, is when you actually started to lose yourself and not even gain any extra favor with them. You just avoided being abandoned, so to speak, by the herd.
Yeah. So when I came in, making music, and like, I had a very much I don't give a fuck attitude, and I think that showed to a lot of people. That's when I really did excel and go quite big, because it was so polarizing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's when it went down.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think I've learnt that over this whole time period, is like, the more you just be yourself and be the authentic you and stand by whatever you think, whatever it is, people are going to gravitate to you more, and you're going to piss people off.
Yes.
But if you're willing to be disliked, you're going to get much further in life.
Yeah, wow.
Like, I remember, there's so many instances. Like, I started in music making very underground hip hop, very raw kind of stuff. And then I made this shift into making more poppy commercial kind of music. And at the time I was wrestling with these demons of like, okay, the scene heads are gonna fucking hate this. Like, they are gonna turn on me. The whole scene's gonna hate me. But it's the music that I wanted to be making, so I had to just stick to it. And I think that shows when you listen to my second album, how successful that went, Falling and Flying. You can see that I stuck to what I believed, and it went absolutely ballistic. But I had to accept that, okay, I'm going to be hated by so many people. And I was like, in around that time period, on my social media, it was probably 90% hate. When I post something, all the comments, it was crazy. And it was brutal too. Like, people would say the most fucked up shit. Really, really horrible shit. Yeah, okay. And that would get to me, but I was also winning. I was like killing it. So it was a bit of a double-edged sword, I think. I don't know if that's the right word. So I'm realizing now, it's like, if you want to get ahead, you're gonna be disliked, but that's okay, because what other people think about you is really not your business. Totally.
We talk about this concept of abandoning myself, and anytime someone says, like, I lost myself, and I relate to that. Like, I remember being in that exact place in my own life, just being like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I'm about. Like, who am I? I just feel like a bit of a shell of a person. And what we know to be true is that doesn't just happen overnight, right? It comes from those thousands of micro little moments where I wasn't true to me, where I said yes when I probably meant no, or when I was agreeable, to your point, or when I didn't take an opportunity that I know was right for me. It's like death by 1,000 cuts almost. All those little times begin to add up. And then you get however long down the track, 13 years in this instance, and you go, holy shit, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I'm about. Like, I've been doing everything I thought that you guys wanted. And now it's like, yeah, I stayed safe, and, no one's crucified me, but shit, I've lost myself.
Yeah, that's it. Completely lost myself, and haven't excelled like I would have if I had have stayed true to myself.
Totally. Okay, man. So you mentioned like people pleasing for that whole period, as playing it safe, and then kind of ending up in rehab. Join those two for me. Like, how did that kind of come about, and what were you doing in that kind of period?
So when music was just taking off, I was very much in my heavy party stage where we were taking a lot of like ecstasy and speed and cocaine and stuff like that. And before music took off, it was just a weekend thing that we would do. I didn't see it as, at the time, of me trying to escape anything. It was just us having a good time. But then when the music kicked in and the career took off, a lot of money came in, and then it was just like, well, why don't we just do this all the time? Like, just because you can afford to. And then when you've got access to certain things, that when you're coming down off those drugs, you can take other stuff that take away the come down or the hangover of it.
Sure.
So it's turned into this cycle of just doing that all the time while constantly touring. And that went on for so long, to the point where I was on tour and had this addiction to opiates, like OxyContin.
Yes.
And I had a doctor who would basically just give me whatever I wanted. I'd go in there pretty much weekly, and he'd give me crazy amounts of oxy, and also really hardcore benzos. He'd give me the strongest ones you could get. And so I was just taking them every single day. Didn't even think about addiction or anything like that. It was just fun. So I was on tour, and I couldn't get enough of the oxy to last me for the entire tour. So I took a bit, but then I had to go pharmacy shopping around, because at the time you could get Nurofen Plus from the pharmacy, and that has codeine in it, and you can smash as much as you want with that without ODing on because it's got ibuprofen in it rather than paracetamol. So I had, like, my entire suitcase basically was full of Nurofen Plus boxes rather than clothes, and I was taking literally 3 packets a day, because I had such a high tolerance, but it wasn't making me high. It was just making me be able to keep going.
Yep.
And then I had a show in Byron Bay, and I wanted to feel something, so I had 4 packets.
Yeah.
And I forget all this, but I started convulsing on the floor at my show.
Wow.
Landed, and I woke up in hospital in Byron Bay on suicide watch, because they thought I'd try to kill myself, because the amount of stuff that I'd taken, and they looked in my suitcase and stuff.
Yeah.
They thought I was trying to kill myself, and it was really, really difficult. Like, they hand me the phone, because I hadn't told anyone. No one knew what was going on.
Wow.
I'd been hiding this from everyone out of shame and stuff like that. And then they handed me the phone. It was my parents, and I had to just come clean to them while I was on the hospital bed, like, tell them what's happened, like, just saying, like, I've fucked up. I had an overdose. I've been using codeine to replace an addiction to OxyContin, and so I think I need to go to rehab or something. So that was my first time in rehab.
Yep.
And that's when I stopped. That was a long time ago now. I think that was about 12 years ago now.
Yeah, wow.
Maybe even 13. And that's when I stopped drinking. That's when I stopped doing any illicit drugs and all party drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But from then, I got put on Suboxone, which is like a drug replacement for opioids.
Yes.
And then because you can't get high on that, I ended up sort of sweet talking my doctor to put me on methadone, which you can
certainly get high
on that.
Yeah.
And you can abuse that. But then that was like the worst decision I've ever made of my life. Like, methadone was easily the worst, most debilitating drug I've ever been on. I was 120 kilos. I'm 80 now, so I'm 6'4".
Wow.
So I'm quite tall. So I was a big boy.
Yeah.
And I just was out of control. I was depressed. I hated life. I was like a victim to my circumstances. I saw my circumstances as holding me back. Like, I thought...
Like, tell me what that means when you say I was a victim to my circumstances. What's like the story in your head? Like, what's the stuff we wouldn't have seen or heard?
So it's like, I was like seeing fame as the biggest negative I could have. Like, I was like, I can't meet a girl because fame, they're only interested in me because of who I am.
Yeah.
I was seeing basically everything through that lens, that fame was the reason that I was fucked. And instead of taking responsibility for myself, I pushed everyone away. Became so withdrawn from society. I was just constantly wallowing in self-pity, just hoping someone would come and save me and give me a hand to get through it, and no one ever did. But I thought
How does that feel when you're there?
You're just stuck in this, like, this vicious cycle of just thinking the world owes you something and never wanting to hear the truth about what's going on. Like I've got two examples of people telling me the brutal, honest truth, right?
Yeah.
One time I went to the dentist while I was in the thick of it, and I hadn't been flossing at all.
Yep.
So she cleaned my mouth out, but after it, she was like, "This is disgusting. You
Wow.
know, you're not flossing, and this is so gross. Like everything we've had to do is I don't want to be doing this to a mouthful of like old food and stuff like that."
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, I was like, try to make an excuse. Like I've been really depressed and in a dark spot." I was so offended that she told me that.
Yeah,
I
wow.
like almost wanted to complain, to say,
wow.
how dare, like you don't know what I've gone through and all this stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the thing is, like looking back on it now, that's exactly what I needed to hear, because what she said has stuck with me even today. Like I'm flossing all the time because you have to do it. It's healthy, but I don't want to get to that point again. And I didn't realize how important it was, like until she had actually said that. And there was another instance where I was seeing my doctor who was managing all my addiction drugs and stuff like that. And he was just like, "Dude, you're a disgusting drug addict. Like you look fucked, you know, it's time for you to get your shit together."
Wow.
And I was so crushed. Like I was just like, how the fuck can he say that to me? You're not allowed to speak to people like that, you know, that kind of, that
mindset.
victim shit.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, you need to hear that. Like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like I didn't want, no one wants to hear it when they're in the thick of it, because deep down,
Yes.
you know, but you just don't want to take ownership of it. You don't want to be accountable for the place that you're in.
Yes.
So him telling me that was actually, like, I respect that. And I think there's a need for that. And I think we're in a world where there's so much mollycoddling going on for people with mental health issues. And I think it's well-meaning a lot of the time, but there's a middle ground. People need to be told the truth sometimes.
Yep.
And we're in a society where it's often not the case. People will just dance around it.
Yep.
You know, I think there's been a huge effort in society to destigmatize mental illnesses. And I think that's a good thing. But I think we've gone too far and crossed over into enabling and affirming bad behaviors rather than mental illnesses. And that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone get out of it. Or I guess I can only speak for myself. It didn't help me.
Mate, I think you touched on something really powerful before when you said, like, to that point, when you said, like, I felt like a victim and the world owed me a living, and, you know, I was wanting mollycoddling. Like, we talked about that, living from a state of life's happening to me, you know, so I'm a powerless victim. This happened to me, it's their fault, it's someone else's fault, it's the government's fault, it's whoever's fault that, you know, I'm not where I should be, or my mental health's bad, or whatever. It's what happened to me when I was a kid. And when someone's in that place, it's like they always get to be right. You know what I mean? They never got what they want, but they always get to be right, because it was like the doctor was rude, or the dentist was rude, or, you know, fame did screw me up, or like whatever the story is, like you always get to feel like you're right.
Yeah.
But you actually never get to change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think what you're kind of touching on there is super, super powerful, because I tend to agree with the mental health stuff. It's like, if we're talking and keeping people in that place of life happening to you and poor you, and you can just remain a victim, like, and stay there, then we're not actually helping anyone out of that.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is it's important to hear some hard truths. It's important to, you know, tell the truth to someone, not in a shaming way, not in a making, you know, not in a harmful way, but from a place of love, because I care about you, man. And it's like, dude, it's time to step the fuck up and take responsibility, because you're killing yourself here.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And I think there is a need to be delicate with people going through it, because they are so easily triggered by shit like that.
Sure.
Like I was, you know,
Sure.
but at the same time, there's also needs to be just the truth of what's going on. And if a medical professional can't be true about what's going on with your health, then you're fucked.
Mate, it's funny you say that. Like, we haven't really discussed this before, interestingly, but I was also on methadone. I was on 120 milligrams of methadone. And I remember being in a detox center myself, doctor saying to me, like, I only just remember this now, but he was like, I was injecting a lot of Subutex, about 80 milligrams a day, and I couldn't feel my feet, and I was really overweight. And he said to me, he goes, mate, you've been here a handful of times. You know, you're like 19 years old. You've tried rehab. You've had naltrexone implants sewn into your guts. You've overdosed. He's like, you know what happens next, right? People using the way you use. He goes, you die.
Death.
And I just remember being like, is he trying to scare me? Like, or like, why is he saying this? And then something clicked. I was like, oh, actually, maybe he's telling me the truth. You know, maybe he's actually telling me the truth, and maybe this is, you know, a serious thing that I'm facing. So I totally agree, and I think hard truths from the right place, you know, from like in our language, from a place of love. Like, I'm saying it to you because I care. You know, I'm saying that to friends, family, clients, whoever, because I care, not because I want to harm you or make myself right or make you feel like, you know, shame you because you're wrong, but because we care about you, man.
Yeah,
so I've got to tell you the truth.
Yeah, so it's like not a bullying thing.
Exactly.
But it's just what you need to hear to get over it. Where I think a lot of people take hard truth as just, oh, that's nasty. You're being nasty, but no, it's not. You know, there's a fine line.
Do you feel like that's had any kind of broader effects on society?
Massively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a grin. What are you going to say?
Well, I want to be careful with the way I word this because I don't want it to come across like I understand the need for it and stuff like that. Like if you think about participation trophies in sports, where I remember they introduced that when I was a little kid playing basketball, where everyone in the entire league would get a trophy no matter where they placed. Even if they came last, they get a trophy.
So in a competitive setting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that you can argue there's a need for that for when kids are really little and stuff. But when you're trying to go towards elite sports, the fact is there's winners and losers. You know, like if you come last, you don't win. And if
that's kind of the whole deal, right?
Yeah. And if you're still being told it's okay, you got a trophy, you still win. It's like, that's not how life is, you know. You don't learn by winning when you haven't won. Like you learn by making mistakes, and like what's going to drive them to do better next time, you know? That whole mentality of trying to make things fair, even though the world's not fair, you know. I think that another example of that is a friend of mine was saying in their school, the kids are not allowed to have like all their books and all that kind of stuff, they all have to be the same. They're not allowed to have special folders or anything like that because
unique or different.
Yeah, because it'll make the kids that have less, it'll make them feel like they don't have anything.
Wow.
And I do understand that there's probably good arguments for it, but I think when that kid that has less still knows he has less.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's gonna mollycoddling them and saying, look, they might have more, but will pretend they don't. It's not going to change anything. They should be using that to drive them to try and go, okay, my circumstances might be worse than other people, but I can still bust my ass to get ahead. Yeah. There's no encouraging that. Like, I feel like by trying to make everything fair when it isn't, they're not encouraging that kind of drive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Like if everyone in the room's pretending and bringing them down a couple of notches in order to make me feel more comfortable, I'm going to feel more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It feels a bit patronizing if you're like lowering yourself to make me feel better about myself. Like I'm probably going to feel worse and like there's something wrong with me.
There's another example, like think of the Matildas in the World Cup. They absolutely crushed it. They came fourth. They did better than any Australian team's ever done in the World Cup, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from that, what they've done, because that was incredible. It was a monumental moment. But afterwards, they're going to build a statue for them out the front of, I think it's in Brisbane somewhere. They're building a statue for them. And for me, like I just see that and think, is that really sending the right message to kids? That's like, you don't get a trophy for coming fourth.
Yeah.
You know, you come first, second, or third. You don't even get a trophy for third or second. If they came first, maybe. But then getting a trophy for fourth, what kind of message does that send to kids aiming to be elite sportsmen in the future? You know,
Sure.
Like you can get fourth. You don't even have to aim for first. You can get fourth, and you'll still get enough to get a trophy or
Yeah.
a statue or whatever. See, that's an example of where I was like, I know this is going to rub people the wrong way. And it's not my intention to do that because I think they've done an incredible job. And it's not about the Matildas coming forth and like, I'm not trying to trash the Matildas. It's just saying, I don't think that's setting the right example.
Yeah.
I think they should be like, okay, you did amazingly well. Let's do something else to celebrate it. But a statue's like something I imagine you get when you've absolutely crushed something in a legendary way and won, far exceeded anything else that anyone else has ever done before,
Sure.
but actually won, you know?
Yeah.
Like being someone who's a legendary, like Michael Jordan gets statues and stuff. Not for a fourth
Greatest
place,
of all time.
respectfully.
Awesome, man. It sounds like we're getting that guy back from 13 years ago saying how it is. Which kind of leads me into the next topic. I know the whole pandemic was a really tough period for you. Like you said at the start, you kind of went straight into, I think you went into rehab as the pandemic hit. Was that right?
Yeah, so right before it hit properly, there was like talk of it going on.
Yeah.
And then I went into rehab and I did 4.5 months in there. So it was a long stint.
Yes.
And right when I went in, they went into like stage 4 lockdowns and I got out and it was just like the whole world had changed. You know what I mean? When you're coming off something and you've gotten off a drug like methadone and all the so overwhelming.
I mean, coming out of rehab's overwhelming, full stop,
Mm.
right? Like for anyone, because it's like I'm entering the world like a newborn again. There's nothing in my system that's kind of, numbing anything.
Yeah.
So like it literally the colors are brighter.
Yeah.
And so you've come out and into this, a raw environment as is, but the world's different to when you went in. Yeah. Okay.
It does. It is like a newborn. You're learning how to live again. Like
100%.
you're learning how to feel again. Like
100%.
you've been numbing yourself for years and then you've got all those emotions you were numbing are starting to come back and you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I came out and I was really paranoid and just didn't know what was happening. I didn't trust myself, but I also had this crazy gut feeling that whatever was being told about COVID, something wasn't right about it.
Yep.
And I wrote a song called The Truman Show about that, trying to express what was going on at that time. Because we were in these insane lockdowns. In Melbourne, we were locked down for almost I think it was over 200 days.
Wow.
We were locked down, but that was over 2 years.
Yes.
I was spending all day, every day on the internet, on social media like Twitter, just trying to figure out what was happening. And one thing that I noticed was I started following all these doctors, all these scientists and professionals in the field and trying to figure out what they were saying about COVID and the vaccines or, any other therapeutics that they talk about. And then there was this really bizarre, all these professionals started getting censored and banned off Twitter from discussing anything else that went against the main narrative of everyone has to get vaccinated, everyone has to wear a mask. And if there was any of the actual professionals that they were discussing actual studies, they'd get banned. And so that to me was like, there's something really, really wrong going on here because they were saying, trust the science, right?
Yep.
But of course you're going to trust the science if you ban all the scientists who don't agree.
Yeah,
you know what I
wow.
mean?
Well, it's not really science anymore.
Yeah, that's not how science works. Isn't it all about discussing and figuring out what's wrong and what works and what else works and stuff like that? So I didn't really, I was so out of it, I didn't know what to think. I'm not someone who understands science very well. I don't have a deep understanding of it. But at the time, I had a show that was going on in interstate and it paid really well.
Yep.
I needed the money, but in order to do it, I had to get vaccinated. And I didn't want to. My body was trying to tell me no, don't do it. You shouldn't get it. You're not someone who needs it. You're not you don't have comorbidities and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
but ended up getting them, and I ended up going to the ER twice with these crazy chest pains, and my heart was like bumping all over the place. I honestly thought I was going to die. And each time I went, they told me that it was anxiety and it was all in my head. The effect that had is still lingering with me today.
Yeah. What was that like when you say the effect that had?
Like, I was questioning my sanity.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, I was really like, wow, maybe I'm actually crazy. Like, maybe all the drugs have just sent me off. And then fast forward to now, I actually know multiple people who have had similar like side effects for vaccines and stuff. Like, one of my friends, Michelle, she got pericarditis, but she was told that it was anxiety and in her head. But they've found out now that it's not. And one of my friends, and there's been a few friends that have had these really bizarre immune responses that were like shingles type deals and stuff like that. And a lot of them just don't want to talk about it because they've like, the people that have talked about it have all been labeled right-wing conspiracy theorists or anti-vaxxers. When like my friend Michelle, she's one of the most like vocal supporters of vaccines I've ever known in my life. And she always went to bat for vaccines. And then this happened, and it's just like, it just totally blown a lid off it for her, and it flipped her worldview entirely. I'm not trying to say there's some big grand conspiracy. I think there's definitely a chance that there is, but there's more going on. And I feel like unless people are online actively searching out these things, you wouldn't even know about it, because of how the way algorithms work and all that on social media these days. They keep you in a feedback loop of whatever you look at. Sure. So if you're not looking for things related to the vaccines or related to COVID policies and all that kind of stuff, then you're not going to be seeing it, and it's just going to sound like kooky talk. But it is 100% happening. But it's happening. The people that I know that were affected were all people around my age in their late 30s.
Yep.
That's one thing I've been so afraid of talking about, because I know the way people have reacted to other people, especially like, you know, how can you be called an anti-vaxxer when you've had the vaccines? that doesn't make
It's actually a really good point.
Yeah. How does that make any sense at all? Ever since then, I've held this like major grudge, like with everything that's going on since like the Ukraine-Russia war, even the referendum, the Palestine-Israel stuff. It's like I've got this really strange feeling that something's off about it all. It's like everything that happens is constantly being used as a means to break people up into different groups and divide people. Sure. It's like left versus right. Yeah, I just don't like it.
So, man, at the start of the conversation, you're talking about, you know, you learnt this kind of skill to play it safe, you know, to kind of fit in. So I didn't rock the boat and everyone liked me. Is this like another example of that you're referring to, where inside I kind of knew what I'm hearing you say is inside my intuition was saying, hey, something's not right here. Like, you know, something's telling me to not do this, but I'm just going to do what they want or everyone else wants. Is this an example of that?
Yeah. I've always had this mentality that when it comes to science and health stuff, I'll go with the general consensus and then they'd know best. But I think I was a little bit naive to the fact that anything can be corrupted and monopolized. I don't want to get too deep into that.
Sure.
Like, I know how controversial this kind of topic is.
Absolutely.
And how people will react and, like, you know, try and make it a culture war thing. And I don't want it to become that.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that I need to listen when my gut is screaming out to me to do something. Beautiful. Or not do something.
Beautiful.
Then I need to follow it. I need to honor myself.
Yes.
Like, for me, that through all the COVID thing, even though this happened and it was such a horrible experience, it was like a blessing in disguise. There's a silver lining to it, because I have learnt now, like, and I've made a promise to myself, I will never, ever make a decision based from fear like that again. And I will always listen to my gut if it's telling me something. That's shown in the work that we've been doing. Like, that's the whole part of it, is trying to just make sure I always honor that feeling.
We are talking about a touchy subject, and we are talking about something that people can, you know, wordsmith or make it or turn against you and try to make it sound like oh, 360 said this or whatever it might be. But what I'm actually hearing you say here is I acted in a way in everyone else's, perceived best interests that wasn't okay for me. And when I do that, I lose my own trust and respect. That's how you ended up in this place in the first place.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes.
By not being true to me, by not honoring myself, by gradually abandoning myself, I lose myself.
Yes.
And so what I'm hearing is moving forward, you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And you're going to do what's right for you regardless. Yeah.
I'm responsible for my health, and I'm taking charge and no one else is, and I'm not responsible for anyone else's health.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like that's a big topic, right? Like, radical self-responsibility is scary for many. The concept of I need to be responsible for my own choices. For a lot of people, they don't want that level of responsibility. It's like, oh my God, I want everyone else to it's kind of that, someone to come and save me stuff that you were talking about before. I feel like that's a big theme for you, man, that radical self-responsibility and stepping up and, becoming, trusting your gut and being who you're meant to be.
Yeah, so all those years of all the drug using and all that, like I wasn't being, like I'm 37 now and I've only just starting to learn how to be an adult.
Yeah, wow.
And be responsible for myself and, take charge of my life. And like before I was being led by hedonism and self-indulgence. Like I think because I didn't really know who I was just using things like drugs, sex, materialism, all that kind of stuff.
Just looking for things outside of yourself.
Yeah, anything that would just numb whatever's going on. But it's like the thought of like taking care of my health, like going to the gym, like being responsible enough to make sure I eat a clean diet and all that kind of stuff. All that was like, oh no, that shit just takes too much effort. I just want to do what's fun. Like we only live once. Like why don't we just have fun with it? And I think that's like a good way to look at life, but it was very misguided. Like it's not about just doing what's fun. You've got to, when you realize how much healthier you are and how much happier you become when you actually take care of yourself, it's like the most empowering thing, because the things that seemed like too much effort and too boring to do in the past, they become like I'm like hanging to do it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to like learn those things, how to be an adult instead of living like a little boy.
Wow. Yeah, I love that, man. I mean, I've even personally noticed that in a lot of your music in the last, year or so. Like it's like we're getting a man now. You know what I mean? And the message that's coming through feels much more mature and much kind of more like legit. It's almost like the way you described that before, where I was just doing what everyone else wanted for all those years. Like it's kind of like you're back to the start of just doing what was right for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Finally just growing up. Like I just wish, I do wish that I'd known this stuff a lot earlier. Yeah. The importance of taking care of yourself and doing all the work, that inner work. Like it is what it is because it's part of the journey,
Sure.
It's part of getting me where I'm at. And I think now I'm very excited for where life's going, because like I want to be a father soon. Like in the next few years, I want to be a dad, and I never thought I'd be saying that.
Wow.
So it's like I've realized now, okay, if I want to be a dad, then I've got to sort a lot of shit out. Like I've got to figure out how to live like a proper adult and take care of myself rather than just, skating by and doing the things that feel good.
Yeah. I love that, man.
So much shit has changed. Like my attitude to life has changed, like even my attitude to sex.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I was just like, instead of just being like, dish it out to anyone who wants it, it's like now I see it as like this kind of sacred thing to be shared with someone that you really love. Wow. And I think we live in a age where everyone is told it's, it's empowering to sleep around and have a high body count and shit like that. But just speaking for me personally, I know for me, it kind of gradually just chipped away at my self-respect, and I would feel completely depressed and alone after hooking up with someone, and I'd just feel this emptiness feeling, and it was really sad, and it was like that for a long time. But then now where I'm at, met someone perfect who I really love, who I want to have kids with, and
wow,
it's life's just changing.
Wow, that's amazing. So good. So, man, I guess that brings us to us doing the inner work together. Like, I remember even in some of our first conversations, you were saying like, oh, you know, I'm playing it safe in my interviews and I'm, you know, people pleasing and stuff like that. Like, clearly the guy in front of me today is not doing that, you know, talking about big topics. How have you gone from there to here? What's that journey been like? Like, how have you actually achieved it?
So I think a lot of it was, I had to work out why I was people pleasing and all that. Like, I'd spent a lot of time with a therapist and understanding all my issues like inside and out. Then realizing, okay, I really struggle being assertive. I really struggle setting boundaries and doing all that. So how do I do that?
Yeah.
And then AJ introduced me to you.
Yes.
And telling you and like just saying, all right, this is where I'm at. This is these are all the things that I want to change. And then you helping me with giving me the tools to start laying boundaries and holding me accountable to make sure I actually do it. I used to avoid confrontation like crazy, man. Like every relationship that I've been in the past, I would never ever speak up when there was something wrong. I was just always that laid back person, carefree, nothing bothered me. But in every single relationship, I was always harboring resentments about little things. And then it would build up to a point where I couldn't stand it anymore.
Yes.
To them, it would be out of nowhere. I'd just come out and be like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what the hell's happened? It's like I switched overnight. But to me, it's just because I wasn't voicing anything.
Yep.
So understanding that and then just having those uncomfortable conversations with people. Like I used to tolerate people that I should never have tolerated for years. Like for most of my life, I've done this, even when I was a kid.
Yeah, wow.
You know, I'd always let shit slide and just never speak up for myself. And you just realize that people walk all over you when you're like that. And you think you're doing it because you're going to make them like you, because you think, okay, if I speak up, they're not going to like me. But if you speak up, people respect you so much more than if you don't.
Yes.
So it's been having those conversations where, okay, so someone's vibe, their energy they're bringing, I'm not liking it. I would have let it slide in the past. Now I'm telling them and saying, look, I'm not feeling this and I'm sorry. And it's not coming from a place of trying to put them down or anything like that. It's just letting them know that you're not going to be a part of my life anymore.
Wow.
You know, you got to go, you know?
Wow.
And that was really, really hard. Like the first few times it happened, I felt guilt-ridden.
Yep.
I felt like so bad for a few days afterwards, but then that would pass and I'd feel really empowered and I'd feel respect for myself for actually, you know, doing the things that I always put off in the past. And now I'm actually doing all the work that I was way too scared to do.
Yep.
And that's because of you.
Yeah, wow.
Like all the stuff that we've done together is just been helping me figure out that. And now we've gotten pretty far so far, but there's still a lot more work to go.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. In my head, it's really simple maths. It's like I've abandoned myself, and the more I abandon myself, I lose myself. And so I lose my own trust and respect. Other people might like me, but it doesn't feel that way anyway. On the inside, it doesn't feel that way. But what I'm hearing you say, man, and I think this is something a lot of people need to hear, is sometimes doing the work is really frightening. You know, like you're saying, laying those boundaries and setting boundaries and speaking up and doing those things on the inside can feel like you're going to die when you go to do them. That's been my experience. But when you did it, sounds like no one died. And in the short term, you might have felt guilt-ridden and, you know, perhaps some unhealthy guilt there. But within a couple of days, you're actually going, oh, wow, I actually feel really empowered.
Yeah.
And my life feels good. And now my world is growing. Instead of losing myself, I'm now actually gaining this bigger sense of self.
Yeah. And I always had it in my head that if I do those, say those and set those boundaries and stuff, that the person's going to react really poorly and it's going to turn into some huge drama.
Yeah.
But it never does. It never has. But even though it might, it's okay if it does, you know? So there's a quote that I really like that says, the magic you seek lies in the work you avoid. That sums it all up, really. You've got to do everything that you don't want to do. Like all the work you're avoiding, do it and you'll get much further.
what I'm hearing is, again, like I no longer see this guy who's kind of like a boy in a fully grown adult man body with fame and success and everyone that wants to shake his hand. And now it's like, oh, I've taken responsibility for myself, right? I'm going to do what's right for me, regardless of what you feel. And that's really scary, yet I'm still going to do the thing. You know, we have a saying, and I know we've talked about it before, but it's this concept of being unfuckwithable, you know, and that doesn't mean that I'm fearless. It just means that I'm willing to have any emotion that comes at me in the service of being true to myself. Right? So for me to be true to myself, whatever that means, if it means I'm you know, may step on your toes, you know, as long as I'm not doing any harm, right? But when people do this from the right place, no one ends up harming anyone. No one ends up hurting other people, because generally that comes from a place of fear, and it comes from a place of not liking myself, and it comes from a place of scarcity. Whereas when I'm truly being true to myself, it's like, oh, I actually want to help others around me, but I'm going to have boundaries. And that behavior is not okay. You know, and that's not cool. You know, and it's probably similar to the doctor and the dentist in your case actually telling you the truth and saying, man, you got to, you know, pull your head in. And in your case, that was a blessing.
There's always always been that fear of, like, anytime I'm talking about something that's controversial, like the way people are going to react and you know, turn on me. But it's like realizing if they're going to turn on me for just expressing the truth of what I've been through, then I don't want anything to do with them. And that's okay.
And I'm willing to have any feeling that, you know, arises as a result of that. You know, and that I'll like myself more. In doing so.
100%.
Are there any other kind of parts of the work that have stood out for you, or any kind of moments or awakenings or awarenesses that have...
I had no idea how spiritual it was going to be.
Wow.
So for me, my understanding of religion and stuff like that is very small. I don't know much about it, but I feel like anyone who's creative is quite spiritual, even if they don't really know it. Like when I'm making music and I get in a state of flow, I feel like I'm connected to something greater, like something greater than I can honestly comprehend. It's like I'm sitting there and something is coming through me and just being delivered to me. I don't even have to think about it. And to me, that is something, that's what I would call God, not some man in the sky who's, you know, judging you for what you do and don't do. That's not my understanding of it. I think a lot of religions and stuff and the teachings of it have been misconstrued over the years. Like a lot of the stories have heaps of really profound wisdom, but they're taken literally. So I see them as more metaphors. Like you think about heaven, I don't see heaven as a place I'm going to end up when I die. Heaven is like a state of mind rather than a destination.
Love it.
And doing all this stuff, like I remember I used to pray as a kid. I didn't even know who I was talking to, but I've always felt there was some sort of presence there. So I would always talk to it and thank it for my family and my life and all this stuff, and ask what I want. You know, I'd say, I want this, can you help me with this or whatever? And since doing this work with you as well, reconnecting with that again has been huge. A lot of it's kind of strange. It feels like I'm reconnecting with who I was when I was a child. Which is really, really, really bizarre. Like and I'm loving it. Like I pray before every show. Because I can get nerves, and I will just be like, all right, take the wheel for me. Show me how you want me to perform and how you want me to be represented on stage and stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't realize how spiritual the work was going to become. I've always been very cynical when it comes to religion and stuff like that. Like you mentioned God or anything, but I think people these days say like the universe or source. I think it's all the same thing.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. And like, obviously we're not religious in the sense that we don't have an opinion on any religion, and this isn't a religious thing. And when we say spirit and spirituality, like that's, like you're saying, is being connected to something that's just like beyond my ego and beyond my feelings, right? And if anyone who's come to one of your concerts and has had, you know, goosebumps in the crowd, that's a spiritual experience. You know, you watch a footy game and you just get like this wave of emotion that comes over you because your team's doing, you know, winning or losing or whatever it might be. that's a spiritual experience. You know, when you rock out a track in the gym that gets you pumped and you just enter a different state inside yourself, like that's a spiritual experience. And you know, the word inspired, when we break it down, is connecting to a spirit within, and it's inside all of us. And you know, it's been really awesome to see you on that journey where you're reconnecting with that part of me that, you know, has a message to share and truly wants to move people and truly wants to create, you know, timeless music.
I feel like every single person has a higher purpose.
Yeah.
And they just have to figure out what it is that their spirit feels drawn to.
Yep.
And for me, that's 100% music.
How do you describe that? Is it like, I've heard it described like a little quiet voice inside, or it's like I just know, or some people it's a gut feeling or an intuition? Like, how do you...
Intuition feels very much similar to the flow state feeling. Like when I get a crazy intuitive vibe, it feels like I'm being guided by something greater as well.
Wow.
You know, like when I say I'm being gifted something when I'm in a state of flow, it feels like some sort of divine guidance.
Yep.
And I feel like everyone can connect with that if they sort of embrace it.
Yes.
And just follow that inner voice, whatever it's taking you towards, and yeah, you'll get there.
And so, man, as a result of kind of doing this work for, you know, nearly 12 months now, how are things different for you? What are the results?
I have so much more respect for myself now. When I was quite lost about who I was, I had to really figure out, okay, what are my core values and who's the man that I want to be? And then figuring out those values and making sure I dedicate myself to living in alignment with those.
Yes.
And not abandoning those, like not abandoning myself when the intuition is trying to tell me something and all that. I respect myself more. I feel like I love myself again.
Wow.
You know, like a grim outlook on myself before.
Yeah.
I had so many confidence issues, and the inner monologue was always like, you're shit, like you can't do this. And over time now, like I had to actively change that and be like anytime that voice would come up, I'd be like, all right, catch myself and say, no, I can do it, and I'm going to do it. So, and then when you tell yourself that enough times, you start actually believing it. And then now that's what's happening. I feel like it's just become an evolution, and it's just becoming the man that I know I can be.
Wow. Who is that guy, man? Who can we expect to see in coming times from 360?
Just someone who's a lot more honest and constantly putting in work to keep evolving and keep growing.
Beautiful. Sounds like there's a family at play.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that. Like, I've seen how much it's changed. Like my mate Pez, he's had 2 kids, and the way it changed him has just really made me think like, oh, this would be so cool. This would be really, really amazing. And a lot of my mates have had kids now, and I never thought I would want to do it. Like, I always thought, yeah, it could be nice, but now it's like, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
You know, and to be with one person and someone that I completely love, and, you know, just feel this inner desire to like protect and want to help and, you know, provide for, and just everything. Life's been changing dramatically in the last year alone.
Yeah, wow. That's really
but it's
cool,
all
man.
from this work.
Yeah, wow.
It's all the work that we've been doing. So I can't recommend it for anyone else enough.
It's interesting, right? Like, just as you said that, I had this thought. It's like you were living this life where I was looking outside for all the answers, you know, money, sex, fame, drugs, alcohol, status, whatever it was. And, you know, by any measure, you probably got more than the vast majority, of all of the above. What I'm hearing now is actually, well, I did that, and that landed me not liking myself and in rehab. And since then, I've actually been doing work to, you know, be true to me, find those things inside of myself. And now what I'm hearing is, you know, life's more meaningful. You know, just to hear you talk about wanting to start a family and having, you know, that type of love that sounds very different to what you were describing earlier. Like I even see the man talking now, you know, you've been speaking from a different place just there. It's like super cool, man. It's very impressive to watch.
Man, I'm loving it. I'm loving the journey so far, but I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. Because I feel like the more work we do and the more work I put in, the better life gets. It just keeps getting better.
Yes.
You know? And yeah, just feeling more confident and all that is just so important. It's being happy, like actually feeling happy and grateful all the time is just, it's so much better than being stuck in this fucking hedonistic, like, and just not really liking myself.
Yeah, man.
It's so much better than that.
So, dude, would it be fair to say on tour before, when, you know, the Nurofen Plus and all of that, you know, super high drug use stuff, was some of that to mask some of these, you know, maybe anxieties and things that came up when it came to performing or getting in front of thousands of people? Like, is that a thing? And how did it go, you know, touring earlier in the year without that?
Yeah, so because I was always partying and stuff like that, I was always very loose on stage and was never stiff. I never had any nerves. I would just go out there and absolutely crush it.
Yeah.
And then after this 5 or 6 year hiatus,
Yes.
I had my first tour back. It was in June, and I was so nervous, man. Like I was every single show I was getting up and I was seeing myself through the lens of other people, as if they were seeing me thinking, this guy's not got it anymore. Like I felt rusty, stiff. I couldn't loosen up. I was like, I wish I could have a few drinks just to loosen up. I know I can't, and I wasn't going to, but in that first tour, it honestly felt like I did question if it's going to be like this, I don't know if it's worth doing anymore.
Wow.
And then fast forward to the next one, the regional tour, all the work that we've been doing, like getting my diet in order, all the exercise, all the inner work, everything, having like doing all the praying and meditating before the show.
Mind, body, spirit. Yeah.
And then getting up there, each show I felt very natural again. Like I was like very confident. I was fucking around like I was drunk up there, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, so I felt real back to the old me again, which has been really amazing because performing is such a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And if it's not fun, it's really brutal. It really does make you question whether music's worth doing if you can't have fun performing.
Okay.
But yeah, now that I've gotten back to that place, I'm absolutely loving it again. I just can't wait to see where life's going to go now. I feel like we're only just getting started.
Love it. How good, man. So, man, for everyone on the series, we asked 3 questions. Well, number 1, what do I want you to know about me? So what do you want everyone to know about you?
That I'm flawed,
Wow.
but committed to always getting better and growing, never being complacent with where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. What don't you want us to know about you?
Maybe that I'm flawed. I guess a lot of the stuff that I don't want people knowing is what I've just spoken about.
Love
here.
that.
Like I've never wanted people to know all this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'd hide it.
How good though.
Yeah.
Like that right there is obviously the true mark of progress. Like
Yeah.
all the stuff I swore I'd never tell you because I was worried about what you might think,
Yeah.
I've just shared.
Yeah.
So yeah, respect, man. Third question is, what are you currently working on, within your own inner work journey? What are you working on at the moment?
The real work for me is trying to become the exact man that I need to be, that's going to be the best father that I can be.
Love it, man. Beautiful. If I can finish with one last question, if there's someone that's listening to this and they're like, oh wow, I really relate to that people pleasing or holding myself back or, not being able to lay boundaries, what advice would you have for them? What would you say to someone who knows they need to do some work on themselves?
I'd recommend getting help with it.
Yep.
Finding someone who can be a coach, or even like a lot of people can't afford it though, which I understand. So it is difficult, but you have to just step into that uncomfortableness and it's really, really difficult, but it's so worth it. And there's no better time to start than right now.
Awesome, man. Love it. Mr. 360, thank you very much for coming on the series.
Man, thank you.